But we're talking about so much emphasis often put on the, what can I say, the hardware of retail, the processes of retail. But certainly most importantly, I would argue, it's not so much the hardware as it is the software, the people, the service, the human capital, and how do we bolster service. I think particularly if you think back, let me give you an example. So I'm from Johannesburg. And I was thinking this morning earlier, what is the best retail experience I've ever had from a customer perspective, and what made it so special? And the question will be to my colleagues here is, how do we replicate that and embed, instill, infuse that same notion of high service ethic, customer care in retail in Saudi Arabia? That's what we seek to do. So thinking back, I'm an avid, I try at least when I have time, reader. I read a lot of books. So there's a bookstore in South Africa called Exclusive Books. I even memorize my Fanatics, it's called Fanatics loyalty number. So I hadn't been through the airport for like about a year, at least. So this was probably in July this year. I'm going through the airport, and I've got to buy a few books before I get on a plane, as you do. Walk in, buy a whole lot of books, put them on the counter, and the guy at the airport says to me, "Martin Davis, it's so good to see you." And I was like, and this is before I gave him my loyalty number. He didn't check on the system. Somehow, I got no idea how, he knows my name. Hadn't seen me for at least a year. I was blown away. I got his name. I didn't know him before. I recognized him, didn't know his name. I sent an email to the CEO of that company and said, whatever you're paying this guy, it's not enough. Because I will always, I'm now your most, in this conclusion, I'm your most valuable asset as a business. It's called a loyal customer. And it's because of the service. So that's what we'd like to instill ultimately in all retail businesses here in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. That's the aspiration. I'm going to ask each one of my panelists here two things. Firstly, what was your best, we always remember the bad experiences, but what was the one standout experience that you experienced as a customer? What made it stand out? What made it special? And also, before you answer that, maybe a very brief introduction as to who you are and what it is you do every day. Yasmine.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. So I'm Yasmine from Clay. Clay is a luxury goods watch and jewelry retailer based in Riyadh. I think a retail experience I've had as a consumer fundamentally was around storytelling. In the luxury segment specifically, storytelling is very important. So I was in London during Christmas time, and I was walking around one of the luxury department stores. And I walked into a brand that they were selling. It wasn't a known brand. And I started talking to the salesman just to kind of understand what the brand was about. I was really surprised that the brand was a very high price segment. So I started having a conversation with the salesman, and the idea is that the salesman didn't tell me anything about the product. He was asking me about my lifestyle, he was asking me about what I did for a living, why was I visiting London, etc., all of that. And the conversation carried on for 2 hours. I ended up not buying the watch, but I ended up becoming an avid follower of that brand. And sooner rather than later, I started retailing that brand today at Clay. So the idea is that the customer experience, which was a very social retail experience, to me fundamentally was what built that loyalty, maybe not immediately, but it happened about 5 to 6 years later when we started retailing that brand today at Clay. So I think storytelling is a key element of a consumer experience today in retail, specifically maybe in the luxury segment.
Ibrahim, exactly the storytelling. It's the soft skill. Yes. You've got a top brand. a relatively high-priced product, surely the soft skill, storytelling, sort of skill set, ethos is super important for your business. You've just launched, you told me earlier, an academy, which is not just for your own employees, but the wider public. How important are the soft skills, beyond the obvious, the storytelling that Yasmine speaks to for your business?
Thank you so much, Dr. Martin. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel discussion. And yes, all my life experience was in learning and development, so I love what I do more than anything in the world. But I took a promise and a personal challenge that I will never deliver a learning initiative without having an impact. That impact should influence people performance and also should uplift the performance and productivity for the employees. Back to the storytelling. Storytelling is the key of everything, especially in perfumes. Imagine that you are buying a luxury product, like a niche perfume, and the sales associate told you it has patchouli in it. Do you really know what patchouli is? But with the storytelling, I can let you know what patchouli smells like, right? Imagine. Have you ever been into a forest in Asia? Anyone? Great. So imagine that you are walking in a forest and you hear the sound of the green leaves under your foot, and it breaks down because it's super dry, right? And since it's Asia, so it's raining like crazy. And all of a sudden, the wind came high, started raining heavily, and then the soil became wet. And now imagine that you took a handful of mud mixed with the green leaves, and you smelled it. And it smells like earthy, green, sweet. That's patchouli. Did you imagine the smell? That's the storytelling, that's the power of the storytelling. You don't need to visit Asia and go to a forest to experience the smell of patchouli, but I can take it to you with the power of imagination. So I believe such a skill, when you transfer that to people and you give them a room for experiencing it and practicing it, and a safe room for trial and error, people need to commit mistakes to learn. The first thing that you would expect from a sales associate attends the training is they come and skyrocket their sales, which is unlikely to happen. But if we give them a room for practice and safe room for making mistakes, I believe that will help.
Ibram, how are you instilling this? Are you actively teaching storytelling skills to your staff?
I do, yes. Storytelling is the core of our essential skills for all new joiners. We understand, we had this discussion before. Young Saudis, they are not equipped with the fundamental skills that maybe other nationalities were privileged of experiencing at a young age, like exposing to working while they are studying in schools, or they're born up in a family that all of them are workers and all of them are working. But this is our responsibility as learning professionals to take them there, to equip them with that fundamental knowledge. But that wouldn't work without linking it to their own values, to their own culture. So knowing people is a blessing, and it's a skill. You need to travel across country to meet people, to get to know traditions, in order to be able to tap on their emotions and get their buy-in.
Zuhair, you're Chief People Officer of Panda. You employ 16,000 people. It's not that tough. Your experience, please.
Well, first, let me say an experience. When you were talking about customer experience, I just recall something happened a couple of weeks ago. And with an online business, I ordered a gift for and believe it or not, for my daughter-in-law to be delivered to her. And I asked for a specific thing. Someone called me 3 hours before the delivery time saying that, oops, one of the elements are not there, one of the things. And I was really upset. So I said, cancel the order, I'm not interested. Believe it or not, exactly 20 minutes after that, their operation director called me. And it's not about the refund, it's about the gestures of really knowing you as a regular customer and picking up the phone and say, we're really sorry. And I think this is kind of one of the things that makes you a loyal customer, that when you feel that the suppliers of the service or the product really cares, which is something that we need to develop. So in my experience with Panda, 16,000 people, and you're dealing with all levels of societies. A smile with a cashier makes a big difference and makes people return. The butcher, if I was talking with my colleagues about cross-selling, and I just remember that, when you walk into one of those grocery stores, there is a possibility of cross-selling, and you need to train people how to cross-sell. You need to train people how to manage their stress, because working in a grocery retail is not fun. Standing for 8 hours as a cashier is not a joke. It's a very stressful job. And you need to make sure that people are trained of how to manage stress and how to interact with the customers in the most professional way and being responsive to them.
So if I may ask you, so we've seen one of the sort of key, the major trend of the labor market in Saudi Arabia in recent years has been the driving down of unemployment, currently sitting at 7.1%. Come 2030, looking at Saudi unemployment rate overall at 5%. That's sort of a target come 2030, it was mentioned earlier. You part of in 2020, government set up a number of human resources, social development department, set up a number of sector councils. You chair the retail sector council in terms of local talent, skills development for retail sector. If you look the last 4 years, have you achieved beyond the numbers? Let's look less quantitative, more qualitative. Beyond the numbers, wearing your semi-government hat, how satisfied are you with the progress made in terms of qualitative input improvements in the service in the retail sector?
So let me give a brief introduction about this initiative. So Saudi, the Ministry of Human Resources developed the labor market strategy in Saudi Arabia. One of the initiatives is the Sector Skill Council. And we have 12 Sector Skills Council. I share the retail and wholesale sectors. Basically, the idea, we've always struggled with what are the skills? What do you need from those people you hire? And we realized that our current educational system does not produce the skills, not at the university level, not at a high school level. And probably, as Ibrahim said, Saudis used to be traders, used to work into these sectors. But things evolve through times and we're no longer there, so we need to bring back to it. So what we do in these sectors is basically we bring the private sector's companies. We don't develop anything at the ministry level. We have around 16 members representing different sectors or subsectors within the retail, and we work with them in identifying what are the skills that are required of a Saudi person, or if anyone working in a retail, from luxury products to perfumes to grocery and what have you. And this is where we work on the qualitative part or the quality of the product rather than number. So we're not pushing companies to hire them. We're saying these are the standards. And what we do also, we went back to the private sectors in terms of learning and development. So now we're working with Sinomi Academy. I'm hoping that later we'll start working with Arabiya Academy. We're working with Business University of Business and Technology in Jeddah. We're also exploring opportunities with 2 universities. One of them is Al Yamama here. So what we do in the ministry is working in the interim, bringing the private sectors what they want, set it in a format understandable by human resources and learning and development people, and then go back to the private sectors to deliver the training.
Thank you. Yasmine, from your side, you obviously at the top end, as you described, top end of luxury, jewelry, foreign brands, and Saudi local brands on the jewelry side especially. And of course, the service expectation is greater from a customer perspective, the higher up the food chain you go in terms of retail. What are your experiences around, as he was saying, about the heritage, the pride of one heritage, but recapturing this, the skill to trade, to sell, to be a brand ambassador? What are your personal experiences around looking to develop that talent and how can I say, matching the aspirations of talent to the brand values that you retail every day?
Yeah. I think it starts with passion. I think luxury is a very emotional product. So again, going back to storytelling is a key point, but I think passion is a second point. Obviously, not everyone's going to be as passionate maybe as the founder or the watchmaker or the person that created the brand. But I think a key takeaway that we've learned over the years is that experiential training, we call it at Clay. So how do we take talent from Saudi and send them abroad to experience what the C-suite or leadership experience when they go and visit these brands that we're bringing into Saudi? And I think that's a key point. So if we're able to take that talent, as Brahim said, that Saudis weren't born with the opportunities maybe that their international peers or colleagues have, then how do we take them and then allow them to learn and immerse themselves in the industry with international peers, colleagues, watchmakers, brands, etc., and take that experience and bring it back to Saudi, cascade it down to their colleagues, and then that gets delivered to the customer. So I think that's one part of it. And I think a second part, which is very important, is diversity in a company. Having Saudis and non-Saudis, different talent, a different pool of talent really brings together different experiences. Diversity in nationality, but also diversity in profession. And I think it's important for retail. So although I work in the luxury sector, we don't only hire people that have experience in the luxury sector, because believe it or not, there aren't many in Saudi. So we bring people from different backgrounds for them to deliver that experience. Where we learn from the Saudis a lot is the element of cultural nuances. So today, as a Saudi, I would know what my Saudi customer would expect or what would they like as a Saudi consumer. Then I can bring my international talent or whoever comes from a diverse background to give me that technical expertise. But the soft skill really sits with the Saudi talent. Whether they are trained or not trained, they would really understand the cultural nuances of what that customer would expect. So I think it's a multitude of things, but it definitely starts with proper training.
Exactly. Ibrahim, how do we transfer this? There's three things. There's tools of training. There's blueprints, i.e. manuals of what to do. But most importantly, there's know-how. And know-how's in people's brains. It's in their passion. Yasmine's key word. How are you, your business, you've got this academy, but how are you transferring know-how? Who was that journalist? 10,000 hours, who am I thinking of? I forget right now. But how do you transfer that know-how into people's brains to fast-track this training period that is aligned ultimately with government policy and what we seek to do?
That's a very interesting question. And before I answer this, let me ask a very strong question. How many of the stakeholders or the decision makers in this room, big retailers, are getting fascinated about new technology or a new tool, and all of a sudden they invest in that tool and they bring it down to people to deal with or to customers to deal with? Keeping that in mind, that in an age of high complexity, so many tools and rapid advancement of technology, it is a lot to take in for a humble sales associate. And I'll give you a shocking fact. In retail, I made a survey over 3,500 Saudi sales associates, frontliners. The average tenurity of a sales associate is 7 months.
Is that all?
Yeah.
7 months?
Yes. The minimum number of someone spends in the business is 1 month, and the maximum is 1.7, 1 year and 7 months. That's for 2024 and 2023 only. Maybe the older generation used to stay a lot or stay longer, but the new generation, the people are now in the stores, they don't stay more than 7 months. So back to your point of you invested heavily in learning and development, 7 months, and he is leaving you. And then you have to reiterate the same process. And it's endless cost. That's why having a personalized learning approach with a micro learning topics. So you said the skill that I want is storytelling. But to train someone on storytelling, do you give them a storytelling program in 3 hours, or do you give them like a 3 days classroom training? And they are full of knowledge, and they go in the stores, forget what they've been trained, and that's it. So I believe investing in the right tool, having the right AI-powered learning management system, linking the micro topics into the specific skills that you have identified. So whenever I fail in link selling, so immediately the LMS recommends a link selling program, which is 3 hours long, right? And immediately after I finish, the predictive algorithms of the system tells you whether they're applying this and achieving sales or not. The numbers are higher or not. Add to this the mystery shopping report, add to this the sales report. Now you're getting both of a quantitative and a qualitative metric of whether that person have achieved what they are asked to achieve or not. So utilizing tools with the right L&D partner will help you bridge that gap and lower that cost.
But this is, as you say, the cost of replacement, the staff churn, it's disruptive, it's inflationary on the business and the market generally, and it's not conducive to creating a productive workforce. Zuhair, I mean, what are your views? I mean, are we trying to solve the unsolvable here? Is this a provocative question? Is this a generational problem which we can't solve?
No, I don't think so. I think, to be fair, and God be my witness, I'm not saying that because I'm Saudis. I'm saying that because that's the reality. Give people clear career, give people clear accountabilities, reward them in the right way. Don't abuse them, people will stay. Okay, 1. 2, put the right, and I think the government is putting a lot of initiatives. One of them is flexible working hours. This would also help into reducing the turnover. I think my challenge or my issue is that we need to address the root cause for these challenges, and then the investment in training will be something worth it, rather than just say the turnover is high. We have young people. I mean, today in the morning in a hotel, I walked in, I wanted my egg, and it was a young Saudi lady, and I was, wow. My age, you're standing in a hotel where a young, so very professional in the way she handled me and my request, and Saudi lady, you would not see that 10 years, 12 years ago. You would not see a Saudi guy standing there. So the capabilities are there, the willingness are there, the desire is, all are there. We just need to nurture it in the right way and develop it in the right way.
Yasmine, is this a generational thing? And maybe it's, but looking back, I mean, maybe it's, we don't talk about it anymore, but it seems a long time ago, but the COVID period, has the shift in the balance of power of employer-employee post-COVID changed dramatically? I'm hearing things like flexible working hours, work from home, work-life balance, all these nice things. Am I being too hard?
I think the challenge is global. It's not just Saudi specific. So when I talk to my brands even and partners globally, they have the same challenges. So some might argue it is a generational challenge, social media era, the era of the freelancer. A lot of people think that they can, have, a freelance business on the side and then a full-time job on the side, that flexibility. It's no longer the traditional 9 to 5. So yeah, you do have to cope. You have to be more agile. But I think there's a lot of room for opportunity with these challenges. And I think as Zuhair mentioned, if you listen to people, and maybe this is an initiative that I took a couple of months ago, I sat with a team, each and every one, be it managerial level or not, and just to kind of sit with them and understand, you know, what are their concerns? If they were in my position, what would they do differently? You know, what would they like to hear? What would they like to do? And you would really get interesting feedback. And sometimes it's small changes. It's not just about big dramatic changes and drastic changes that could be super costly on a company. Sometimes it's, you know, as you mentioned, it's a smile. You know, it's just cheering off your team. So I think it's not a generation issue. I think it's lack of understanding the modern generation and how they function. We have an expectation for the older generation to understand them. No, you also need to understand us. And I come, by the way, from this new generation. So it's a bit different.
See, as we look forward, you travel enormously. Which cities, general question, stereotypically for you provide the best service? Where do you go from a customer perspective, which you think, what's our North Star? Where should we be aiming? Is it a Singapore? Is it a Hong Kong? Is it Dubai? Maybe there's obviously pockets of excellence in different places, but who should we be thinking about generally in terms of uplifting the service sector in our city?
I think it used to be Europe. I don't think it's geographic based. I think when we look at social media businesses today, they offer the best customer experience, hands down. Some might argue because they don't have, you know, operational scale, etc., all of that. But hands down, they offer the best services. So I think it's the young generation that are understanding how to cope with the fast-paced environments. I think this is the challenge for retailers, is that there's so much operations that the speed of development is so fast, especially in a market where Saudis are, you know, 60% is below the age of 30. So you're catering to a very young consumer. So today there's this social platform, tomorrow there's that. So it's a very fast-paced environment that we work in as retailers. So you need to be able to cope between both. So yes, training, development, etc., all of that is required, but that takes time as well. So I think from an experience standpoint, I think social media businesses offer the best experience. And I'm not talking about the small, only homegrown. There are large-scale businesses that operate on social platforms that offer outstanding experience.
Zuhair, looking forward, I've asked you about the previous 4 years of your chairmanship of the HRSD Retail Skills Development Council. What's coming over the horizon from government policy perspective? What are you guys thinking? Because clearly this is very important for all retail businesses. I'm amazed often at the amount of training, the tailwinds that the state, the concept of the state, the government here in Saudi provides for many industries, including retail. What do retailers need to know? What's coming over the horizon in terms of government thinking and policy?
So probably in Q1 25, we will finish most of the skills identified with the technical and soft skills. Now we are in the verge of talking to different, I would say, training suppliers with the universities or private centers like Arabiya Academy or Sinome Academy. The third step will be setting the standards, and I think this is where it's going to be very critical. People have to be licensed to work in this industry, so they have to go through the course, and then they have to be assessed that they have the right competencies. I think this will give some assurance to the private sectors that people working in the retail are well equipped and developed. And this will reduce the burden also on my colleagues in learning and development, because previously I used to give him a product that is not prepared. Now at least I'm giving him a product that with probably 80% prepared and ready to walk into retail.
You have a nice question to yourself before I ask everyone to conclude perhaps, but you mentioned, I'm shocked, 7 months average tenure, maximum 1.7. In 2-3 years' time, next time we have a conversation, maybe the same forum, what's that number going to be? Will it be 1 year? Will it be more? Will it be less? I mean, how is the industry generally, using you as a proxy, how is the industry generally looking to counter this high churn in the labor market, in retail? Or are we, through increased retention programs, increased training, increased incentives? Or is this a real long haul challenge that isn't going to be fixed? What do you think?
Well, there are two answers for this question. The first answer is The number could be longer, yes. We managed to bring that down by 50%. We decreased the turnover by 50%, by the way. And I'll tell you the secret. We capitalize on government support, programs like Tawteen, like HRDF, that actually funds the training activities for every Saudi that you're having. So when you invest in Saudi talents, when you give them a pay rise due to the performance increase, they tend to stay. And we are in an age of entrepreneurial ideas, and people are inspired to be tomorrow a CEO and a business owner. So they are somehow pragmatic, and they look also for their own benefit, which it's okay. But my advice, my humble advice to everyone in this room is, and try not to get me wrong, but the learning and development is your winning horse, is the one that you could rely on to drive a change or drive performance. And the simple answer is that if you are not capable of upskilling and reskilling your employees, how your employees will stay longer? And I don't mind if you leave me after 1 month or after 7 months, as long as I'm having a production like an academy that provides me with the ready-made, as you said, Mr. Zuhair, with the people, products are ready, 80% ready, because we put them in like an experiential learning process whereby they experience products, process, cashiering, and dealing with real customers. And by the time I gave that person to the business is ready, I'll share you facts that I have managed to achieve after 2 years of doing what I'm doing with Arabian Oud. I selected 256 employees, non-trained, and I measured their performance, and I allowed them to undertake a training, essential training skills. I measured their performance in the second year in the same period. We managed to increase the performance by 14% in sales, 14%, 1-4, and 10% of ATV, sorry, 10% of UPT and 7% of ATV. And people will ask me, how did you measure the ROI of an L&D activity? The simple fact is that we don't measure ROI. Every L&D professional struggles to measure ROI because they shouldn't be measuring it. The one who should be telling you this is yourself, the business owners and the sales leaders. So when I join your company, I'll ask you, what is the current performance of your people? And you'll say me, they are doing bad. And I say, define bad. Lower customer engagement, lower mystery shopper score, low sales, low KPIs. Okay, set this as a benchmark. Do your magic and come back, measure the same metrics. And only the stakeholder will inform you because he or she are your client.
I got it. We're running super tight on time. To conclude, Zuhair, your final thoughts, and then Yasmine.
I'm taking the hat of the Ministry of Human Resources. There are a lot of initiatives. We're very keen to support the sectors. Just bear with us and participate with us. I mean, we just need to hear from you what are your requirements. I was fortunate today meeting Yasmine and Ibrahim, just listen about luxury products. So things are improving, readiness are improving, and soon if we meet a year from now, you will see different type of talent in the retail industry.
Yasmine, final word. Look, I work in the luxury sector. 10 years ago, I'm an entrepreneur. 10 years ago, this wouldn't be possible. So it's great to be here. It's great to be in this sector. I work in a male-dominant industry, be it on the consumer side or on the commercial side. And you know, it's great to be doing what we're doing. It's great to connect, and it's great to see initiatives as to what the Ministry of Human Resources and Development is doing. So it's an exciting time to be in Saudi with everything happening.
Well done to you, Yasmine. Thank you very much, everyone. 2 final words. Malcolm Gladwell was the guy. 10,000 hours, how to get know-how into people's brains, into their service ethic. And the final quote, I think it was Richard Branson who said, train people so they can leave. Treat people well enough and they will not. And I think that's a sort of quite a strong departing comment. Thank you all very much. It's great insights. And Chair, back over to you. Thank you so much.